Hey guys, it's Rebecca Oberstadt. In today's video, I am using the Lake Como palette from Nomad Cosmetics. It says Lago de Como on it. The first shade I am using is Bellagio. It's like a really very light cream color, and I didn't realize until, editing this that I had some creasing of the concealer on my lid. Now, I went into the Aqua Rama shade next, and I do work with this shade quite a bit. Oh, and just so you know, all of this is real time. This was my first time using this palette. I did end up using the Iceland palette with it because I didn't realize a couple of these shades in here were actually shimmers. There's one like completely shifty shade in here, two shimmers and a satin, and the rest of this palette is matte. But I do want to say that this is a really pretty like blue shade. It has a hint of green to it, but it's such a beautiful blue shade. It does not on my skin look anything like it does in the pan. In the pan it looks more like a standard everyday like blue. On my eye it looks more like a lighter greenish blue, kind of like a robin's egg color. But hey, I knew this was a blue toned palette. This was one of the 2 9 pans that they had that I didn't own and that I was looking at buying. I did go ahead and pick both this one up and the other Italy palette at the same time with the Iceland palette. So all 3 of these palettes came in the same package. And so I figured why not, use the Lake Como palette with the Fire and Ice palette, which is what I did. And I built that Aquarama shade up quite a bit. It started off like a really light robin's egg blue shade, but as you can see, I've built it up so that it matches the color in the pan. I worked with this shade a lot to get it to be the full impactful pigment that it is in the pan. And I'm using 2 different Big H brushes, going back and forth between them to get them to get this pigment to stick to my lid and whatnot. And I was very careful with how much product I picked up. This palette doesn't have a whole lot of kick up at all, not a whole lot of fallout on it either. And the matte shades in this blend super easily, and you can start off with them like a sheer wash of color like I first did, or you can build them up like I'm doing right here and then blending out so that you get a more punchy kind of color. I filmed this, I think, January 20th. Oh, this is the Bella Figura shade. It is a beautiful shimmer shade. It looks like a really icy blue. But then I do build it up a little bit so it looks a little bit more like it does in the pan. This is such a stunning blue. I love blue. Blue and green are my favorite colors. And there are, I think, 3 shades in this palette I have not used yet, which are the top 2 on the top row, and then the bottom corner, which is a navy blue. That's the only 3 shades in this palette I haven't used. And sitting here editing this, I have the palette in front of me. I didn't realize the very top middle shade was a shifter. Now, I went into God's Waterfall for this part of my eye from the Fire and Ice palette. It's a little bit more gray toned than the Bella Figura shade, and I think it works really well with it. It almost looks like the same shade, but on the eye there is a little bit of a difference, and I did use my finger to build it up just a little. This is River Glacier from the Fire and Ice palette, and it's a really icy light blue white shade, and it is so stunning. This, I think, is, besides Hell, in the Fire and Ice palette, is my favorite shade in the palette, to be honest. But there's a couple of shades I still haven't used yet, so we'll see how that goes. I did go back into the Aquarama shade to build up on the outer edge just a little bit because I realized I had a little bit too much shimmer out there, and I wanted that matte blue to stand out, and it's such a stunning blue, and it really does stand out. And then I wanted it as close to my lash line as possible so that there wasn't a whole lot of gap between my waterline and my under eye. And I ended up using a blue ColourPop BFF liner for my waterline I will leave it linked down below. But this was my first look using this palette. Now granted, it wasn't like the only palette I used for this, but still. I really like how the mattes blend on this. The shimmers are so beautiful. And that mascara is kind of chunky on my lashes. How disgusting is that? Yuck. I think that's the one that was drying out, and I stopped using it after I filmed a couple of looks with it. I was like, oh, this stuff is crap. So you can always tell when a mascara is drying out on me when it gets clumpy. Now, this is the shade Frig. This is what I consider a robin's egg blue shade. It's a very, very light pastel blue shade, and it is very, very sheer going on at first. And I noticed that with the fluffier BH brush, this is one of their Studio Pro kits that I bought. You get like 16, 17, and 18. Don't ask me what number that is. I will have to try and leave it linked down below because I don't remember right off the top of my head which one that is. Hello, camera? Yeah, there you go. It was looking at the door again. I do build it up a little bit so it's not as sheer, but this is one of those shades that you can leave it a nice sheer wash of color if you're afraid of working with color, or you can build it up with a denser brush to get it to be even more pigmented on the lid. And here I'm building up the outer edge and then building it up again, and then I come in with a different BH brush. See, there's the robin's egg that I was referring. I went ahead and grabbed a picture off Google so you guys could see the color I was comparing it to, and it is a perfect match to a robin's egg blue. Now into Dolce Vita, La Dolce Vita. This I thought was going to be quite a bit darker, and then I put it on my lid and I'm like, this isn't as dark. Okay, well, this is not. Ooh, okay, there we go. There's the color. Switching the brush, do you see how different that turned out? It really did make a difference in how the pigment went on my eye. I have found that if you find working with certain shadows that it's not looking the way that you want it to, switch brushes, because sometimes it's the brush, the shadow just doesn't like it. And I have found that a lot of times if I try and use, because the majority of my brushes are synthetic, I only have one or two that are natural hair brushes, but some shadows do not like fluffy brushes. Some shadows don't like this kind of brush, which is more of a paddle kind of brush that is more dense. So if you find that you're having a hard time working with shadows, switch brushes and see if that makes a difference. Look at the difference that made by switching brushes, and then you can go back in with your fluffy brush and blend out, and you shouldn't have any issues. It's just sometimes I find with certain colors that it just works better to use a more dense brush. Sometimes a fluffy short domed shader brush works better than this dense shader brush that I'm using. It just depends on the shadow. It also depends on the brand. And I'm also working that color really closely up against my lash line. I don't want it to be too dark because I wanted this to be more of a lighter look. And then here I go back in and blend with that little BH Studio Pro brush again. I really do like the color combo with this. And we're just blending out, and then, you know, I do pick up a little bit more shadow to blend a little bit. I really like that first shade, that Frig color. It's such a pretty blue. It's like a greenish blue. Now, into Spazzato. It is a shimmer version of a robin's egg blue. And again, I went on a little bit sheer with this brush that I'm using, but I did build it up and I didn't really have any issues. If you look at my face, there's not any fallout. This palette doesn't give me any fallout. It doesn't have any like major kick up in the pan, but I'm also very gentle when I go into the palettes that I have because I'm a weirdo. Actually, I'm OCD, so it has something to do with that. So if you find that you're getting a lot of kick up or a lot of fallout with some of these Nomad palettes, it might just be how hard you're going into the pan. Sometimes, you know, I find if I'm a little bit more aggressive with certain shadows, I do get more fallout on my face and more kick up in the pan. Now I do come in here in just a minute, there we go, with the Elves shade from the Fire and Ice palette. It is a more green version of the Spazzato shade, and it does have a bluish base, but it does have green shimmer in it, so I kind of wanted the best of both, because this is like a blue and a green look, and I wanted it a little bit more punchy, so I used my finger on it to build it up and make it a little bit less sheer. And you can really see where it's meeting that La Dolce Vita shade, that it does look a little bit more green. Hello, camera. Hello? Oh, there you go. And then I'm just combining the two shades and blending with my finger. Look how pretty that is. Super simple, nice, easy blue looks, or bluish green looks, or greenish blue looks, or blue with green looks, whatever you want to consider it. I really didn't have any issues working with this palette. Again, there's only 3 shades in this entire palette that I didn't use. Yes, I didn't use it exclusively like I normally would with the first impressions, but my health has not been the best lately. I've been dealing with a lot of migraines, so that's why I'm doing voiceovers like 2 weeks later than the fact that I filmed this, but it is what it is. Hopefully you guys will like these first impressions that I'm doing voiceovers for, because I've also used these palettes since doing this video, so I understand it a little bit better. Also, the liner in my waterline is the BH Power Pencil in teal, and yeah. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you like the more green look or the more blue look? I will see you guys in another video very soon. Have a fantastic day or night, wherever you are. Bye.